It's time to rip the cover off what really works to ditch addiction, depression, anger, anxiety, and all other kinds of human suffering. No, not sobriety. We're talking the F word here, freedom. We'll share straight from the trenches what we've learned from leaving our own addictions behind and coaching hundreds of others to do the same. And since it's such a heavy topic, we might as well have a good time while we're at it. And welcome back to the Alive and Free podcast. I'm just coming off of a weekend retreat here where we took a large group of men through a bunch of processes to help them dump off things like depression, anxiety, addiction, addictive behaviors, relationship struggles, self-image stuff, and all the stuff that comes along with each and every single one of those problems that people encounter. And some great questions were raised. So I'm going to spend some time addressing questions that maybe I don't normally address just because the questions are fresh on my mind. And so today we're going to hit the topic of technology. Now, a lot of people come to me and they're worried about technology, especially just because in the very beginning I was working exclusively with people dealing with pornography and sexual addiction, whereas now things have moved on to trauma and PTSD and depression and anxiety, including pornography and sexual addiction, but other addictions as well, and so on. And so the question has come up a lot of times around technology. What do we do, Bob? I mean, our kids are growing up in a world where at the average age of 8 or 9, they're encountering pornography in schools. Friends are sharing things with them. And all of this other stuff comes up. And what do we do? When do we tell them about it? How do we protect our children from all of this stuff? And then that centers on like, what do we do with their phones and so on? Now, first off, I want to take a step back and help you understand one main thing. As long as you're afraid of something, it controls you. The last thing you want to do for your children and yourself is build a sense of worry about something. And that can be something as simple as weaponry and guns. The more worried people are about them, the more that those things control them. It can be around pornography and sex. The more worried and fearful they are that this thing will ruin their life, the more that behavior will control them. It can be around food and food substances. It can be around disease. It can be around aging. The more afraid you are of a thing, the more it controls you, period. Which means that your job, no matter what it is that you're struggling with, is to reduce fear. Now, interestingly, this is a part of many spiritual traditions. The Christian tradition that I was raised in would say that God is not a God of fear. Think on that for a minute. Just fear alone creates a chemical trace inside of the body that starts to break down its tissues in some profound ways. Yes, it'll pump adrenaline into the system, which is, by the way, acidic. And if you pour acid into a cut, that's going to make you move, right? It's going to motivate you to move. That's what soreness is. Soreness is lactic acid in the muscles. And when it's there, you want to move the muscle out of that position or not move it to avoid that situation. So acid in the body becomes very motivating, so to speak. And if you're dumping acid into the system because of fear, it's going to motivate you to get out of there quick. And it's going to break down the system. So the more fearful you are, the more your immune system is going to be compromised, the more your higher level reasoning is going to be compromised. So many different things. So when you're trying to teach your children about sex or pornography or food or interactions with other people or war or politics or anything else, if you are literally instilling in them what you might call a healthy sense of fear, I might suggest to you that that's an oxymoron. There is no such thing as a healthy sense of fear. Fear is not healthy to the human system. It is a survival mechanism meant to be used in a very pinch, like in a pinch. But if you're busy worried about it the rest of your days, that means it's sitting there in your consciousness, eating away at you, and it's going to make you behave in odd ways around it. So before we get to talking about technology, I want you to understand that notion of fear. As long as you're worried about something, it is controlling you. And if you want to not be controlled by something, the first thing you can do is see it for what it is. Because when you see things as they really are, the fear begins to dissipate. You can have a healthy respect for it. You can recognize that there are consequences that come from using different things, from eating in a certain way, from breathing in a certain way, from doing certain exercises or playing certain games, or from relationships or from anything else. You can understand that every action has another action that follows or another result that comes from it. That's just wisdom. But wisdom doesn't have to be peppered by fear or worry or concern. because the more that happens, the more you lose the fight before you've ever entered it. MMA fighters know this. High-level athletes know this. The more that they are in a space where they think the other person is going to win and has power over them, the more they actually, by the nocebo effect itself, derail their own mind and their own body and put themselves in a position to lose. So if you're afraid of not knowing, if you're afraid of aging, if you're afraid of so many things, that itself begins to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Deal with the fear first. Both as a parent, deal with your own fear so you're not imprinting it on your children. And then with the child, help them get rid of the fear by just helping them see things as they are, naturally. And then wisdom will come without needing it to be fearful. Fear is a great way to control people, but it's also a great way to kill people. So now let's move on to this question of technology. Most people, when they're talking about technology, are talking about cell phones, they're talking about apps and access, and they're talking about what do we do about this stuff? I want to take you back into the history of technology for a second so that you can see it from a broader perspective. Now, if you know me at all, you know I love this type of side trip because when you can see things with a broader perspective connected to a lot of different things, then you don't get stuck in these sort of small or myopic questions. The people that are asking about what do we do about technology think that technology is the problem. But I want to suggest to you that technology is not the problem. Technology only amplifies whatever is there. So let's go back to the beginning. The word technology comes from two basic pieces. One, technos, you would see this in Greek, right? It means, and it comes from a word meaning a weaving. So it's a weaving together, so to speak. And then the logi part would be the ending, the study of, the teachings of, or the gathering or collection of the other thing, right? So a eulogy would be a collection of truth, so to speak, or of happy things, right? Even though a lot of times eulogies might actually be not a collection of truths, but just things we say to make ourselves feel good about the other person. A euphemism is like a nice way to say something. So a eulogy would be possibly a collection of niceties. Now, with technology, you think about these two things together, a collection of weavings, right? The first technology, one of the first technologies that humans would have had might have been fire. Clothes are very, very close to this. This is a weaving together of materials from the outside. So you collect them and you weave them together in such a way that you have clothing. And that gives you the ability to protect yourself from the environment. Because you have the ability to protect yourself from the environment, then certain constant processes you were going through before to keep warm or sheltered now aren't needed. You'd obviously have buildings and shelters that would be early technology, tools, stone tools, other types of tools. These aren't unique to humans. There are other animals that use tools. Otters use rocks to break shells. There are ravens that have used and fashioned hooks to fish things out of bottles. There are even pets. Like humans aren't the only animals to have pets. There are spiders that have tiny pet frogs that eat the bugs that the spiders wouldn't really want to eat. There are ants that farm and cultivate fungi. There are so many things that we think are unique to humanity that we want to use in order to set ourselves apart as special, and that's not actually the case. In this case, it's more a question of maybe degree or quantity rather than difference in quality. And so as we're looking at technology, some of the first technologies would have been weaving. So if we get down to modern day and we look at a collection of weavings, look at what a phone is made out of or a computer is made out of. It's made out of a weaving together of like silicone and conductive materials for the motherboard and the chip and some plastics and some metals and solder and all kinds of other stuff. It's made of a weaving together of programs and thought processes and ones and zeros and different parts to connect energy to the wall outlet and or a battery. It's made of a weaving together of even words and thought processes. Words themselves, the word text also comes from the same root as the word techno or technology. Because a text is also a gathering together of and a weaving together of certain markings, so to speak. And so then you would have a text. So all of this stuff is technology. Everything you use is technology. The words that come out of your mouth are technology. And those words can shape the way that you look at the world. The questions that you use are a weaving together of certain ideas. And those questions put you on a quest. There's a quest in every question. And as you're following those quests, then they produce something in the world. So everything you're doing, from the car you're driving to the house you live in, to the air you breathe, like to the way that you breathe, that's kind of like a coming together of certain patterns of muscle movements. The muscles you use are a technology. The clothes you wear, the words you use, the thoughts you think, the books you read, all of these things are technology. And that's a better question to be asking. What are we doing with technology? In what direction are we pointing ourselves with the technology that we use? And that's a far better thing to be considering than to assume that technology is this harbinger of evil. Technology is only an amplifier of what is there, of what was already there. Think about it. People wouldn't have put porn on the internet if they weren't already inclined to put pornography there. You empower them then with technology, and suddenly what is within them, they make accessible in a bigger way. In the same way, if you, like, for instance, with a child or an adult, you hand them a knife. Now, a person who's a chef will use that technology, that weaving together of mineral and ore and all that other stuff. They'll use it to cut vegetables and to plate food and to serve friends and to make incredible experiences for people. You put that knife in the hands of a hunter, and they'll use that knife in order to hunt, or a survivalist. They'll use it in order to make maybe shelters and carve sticks and whatnot. You put that in the hands of a sociopath, you're going to have a different result. Let's put it that way. You put it in the hands of a scared little boy, and it's going to have a different result. You put it in the hands of any person that you put it in the hands of. That bit of technology will simply amplify and empower what is already within them. This includes techniques that you learn. Like if a person learns to do massage and massage therapy, great, but that massage therapy is also simply empowering what's there. So if that person is a little bit narcissistic or whatnot, then the massage therapist role can turn them into somebody who loves themselves even more, can empower that. If that's a person who really loves to help people alleviate their suffering, then the same set of skills can be used to help alleviate suffering. This goes for acting with actors. All different actors deal with their skill of acting in a different way, and it empowers different things. This goes with basketball and football and Olympic sports. This goes with engineering and chemistry and the medical profession. Everywhere you look, the skills that are being gained are simply a form of technology that can empower what is already there. So if within you, or if within the people you're around, there is a lot of egotism, it doesn't matter what technology, what skills, whatever else is there, all that it will do is give you more opportunity to empower what's already within you. If you or someone you know is looking to drop the F-bomb of freedom in their life, whether that's from past trauma, depression, anxiety, addiction, or any other host of emotional and personal struggles, but they just don't know how or want some help doing it, head on over to thefreedomspecialist.com/feelbetternow and check out some of the things we've got in store for you, or book a call so we can look at your unique situation and get you the help that you're looking for. So if you're parenting, like I think about parenting my kids, I'm not interested necessarily in focusing on what the technology will do. I'm interested on seeing that they learn to take care of their own well-being, because I know that if their well-being is on point, then whatever technology they get their hands on, sure, they might stumble into some things on the internet here and there, but you guys are smart enough to understand that, yeah, we can create a place where maybe we put in filters or maybe we put time limits on the phone or whatever else you want to. So maybe we can create that kind of environment, but if the well-being isn't there, it doesn't matter if you create an environment where you've restricted them. They'll find a way around it, seeking out the technology that everybody else has. And so as we're looking at it and we're recognizing that that kind of technology really just empowers people and shows what's there, there's a very clear set of events happening in the world today where one country has invaded another country because they believe that that country needs to be part of theirs. So this is what happens when you have a person who is the head of that country the president. And that person and all of their advisors and stuff have this within them. They have this entitlement within them, or this sense that they're being deprived if they don't have some kind of claim to another bit of land. And then as soon as you empower those people with an army, which is another kind of technology, then what we have in the world is war and invasion. Hitler was empowered with the voices of the people. All the people themselves are a technology. The human body itself is technology. And because they gave that body, their efforts, their movements, their thoughts to Hitler, he was empowered to do the things that he did during World War II, genocide and invasion of so many different countries and so many millions upon millions of deaths. It's not technology that's doing it, though. Technology only amplifies what's there. I'll repeat it many times probably before we're done. I've already said it many times because I want you to get it through your head. I want you to allow that to sit on your heart a little bit. Can you see how your worries about technology, if they are there, are actually unfounded? That left by itself, that technology is not necessarily going to do anything. Now, granted, yes, there are people that program technology to do stuff outside of it and so on. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is like your use of technology, your use of your phone, that left by itself, you just turn it off, set it on the counter. It's not doing anything. Its only action is going to happen when you begin interacting with it. So what to do about technology? The first order of business is get rid of your own fear of the thing you're afraid of. Next, start to work on your own well-being and the well-being of your children. And I don't mean the well-being in terms of, well, they believe what I believe, they think what I think. I mean their overall total well-being, that joy springs from them spontaneously no matter what. I don't mean that they worry about the same things you do and that therefore you're happy that they're going to live the life that you want them to live just because they worry like you do. No, I mean total well-being. Because when that's there, they're not going to be running around looking for stuff. I've never heard somebody say, man, I feel so amazing right now. I'm just dripping with so much happiness. I think I'm going to go kill somebody. Or I think I'm going to go rob a liquor store. Or, you know what? I feel so good. I think I should go look at pornography. Or so many other things. Well-being trumps it all. Next, let's consider what the use of technology is for. My children, I definitely want them to be fully functional on phones before they leave home. I think Jasmine and I talked about this a little while ago in terms of parenting. Because I'm not interested in them making their mistakes when they're adults and everything they do could possibly be a felony. I'm interested in them learning when they're younger. So the first thing I'm focused on is on the daily, how are they treating themselves? How are they eating? How are they breathing? Are they taking the time to take care of their well-being? And when we start giving them their phones, I'm checking in with this. I'm asking them how they're doing. And if I see that they're getting irritable or angry or anything else, I let them know, like, this is why this is going on. And we're going to pull the technology away because we don't want to empower that yet. We want to get them into a positive space. As they're consistently continuing to take care of their own well-being. And for children, at least with Jasmine and I, it seems like they just, especially teenagers, they just need to be involved in some physical thing for a good solid number of hours every week, 10, 15, 20 hours a week. And it doesn't really matter what the physical activity is. As long as they're involved in it physically, that works out so much of their body's chemical reconditioning itself through puberty and so many other things. And they tend to be pretty well adjusted. And then we're looking at how much are they drinking water? Are they breathing well? All of those other things. Okay, so we look at the well-being next. And then we start, Jasmine and I do, at least, we have a contract with them in terms of when they're going to use the phone, timeout, and so on. And we start with giving them a little bit of access. And then as I see that they're able to access that more, then we're opening up that access more and more and more. And we want them ultimately to just consult with us. Like, hey, I ran across this. How does this feel? And so as our kids have access to it, why do we want them to have access to it? Because right now the planet pretty much powers itself on this type of technological thing. And phones, phone usage, apps, social media, and all of these other things. And while we're not interested necessarily in endorsing all of those as the highest way to live, they do help when navigating the planet. And so I'm interested in them being able to understand what's going on. Then when it comes to pornography itself, for instance, that's a different talk. It's not about technology at all. It's about helping them understand the reality of what happens. So beginning when they're, age 8-ish, I let them know some basic things about what they might encounter at school and what that's about. And if they ask questions, I answer it. And then it's ongoing, consistent conversation about these things as questions arise or as we see something that needs to be addressed. And then we can get more detailed as things need to get detailed. But most of society is dealing with this weird imprint from Hollywood suggesting that sex is like this thing that we see on the screen. So why not preempt that and let them know that, yeah, sometimes it can be. Most of the time it's not. There's a lot of variables that go into it, and there can be, smells and awkwardness and all kinds of other things that go on, and it can be a very, very beautiful thing. It's just one piece of human existence. It's not any more important than your thumb. In fact, your thumb probably does more for your life than your sexuality does. And yet we don't get all up in arms about how a person's thumb is controlling their life. Unless a person loses their thumb, and then they start to become very, very aware of its importance. So dealing with pornography as a worry, or with what people might encounter on the web as a worry, is a separate topic from the topic of technology. Technology only amplifies what is already within you. That means it amplifies the information within you, the kind of questions you ask. You go online and you search for it, and ta-da, then you start finding more and more of the thing that was already there inside of you, that type of curiosity. And so recognizing that, your job in handling technology is not to have to learn the ins and outs of every bit of technology, but rather to step back and understand that technology is just a gathering together of weavings in order to enhance human comfort and human possibility and so on. But it can do none of those things unless the person already has that within them. Start from the basics. Teach your children and yourself to live where happiness is a default setting, where it comes spontaneously without you having to do anything. And then the technology piece will mostly handle itself, and you might just have to learn a few ins and outs here and there.
And that's it for today's Alive and Free podcast. If you enjoyed this show and want some more freedom bombs landing in your earbuds, subscribe right now at wherever you get your podcasts from. And while you're at it, give us a rating and a review. It'll help us keep delivering great stuff to you. Plus, it's just nice to be nice.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.